Welcome to the second episode as I'm continuing to dive into my story. The last episode, just going to recap real quick, was about me, my upbringing, the car accident that I had, and then my athletic journey that led me to college athletics, and from college athletics to post-college, getting involved in physical therapy. And I just left you there of like, here I got into physical therapy and I started realizing that there was so much missing and even just the treatments, it wasn't really seeing the whole person. And then I talked about how I moved into being an integrative health coach and have since been having my own health coaching practice since 2020. Also, when the world stopped and when I had patients not wanting to be seen anymore, it was the perfect time to really bring in what my heart was calling me and just run off of huge freaking self-belief. Today, I want to dive in a little bit more to the continued story of my health crisis, like when shit started to hit the fan. And I think this episode might resonate with more of you, so I would love to hear. You can comment below, holy crap, this is me, or this was me, I have felt this too, and just share a common experience, which sometimes can feel very warming. Let's talk about it. Post-college, second degree, while I was getting my physical therapy license, my physical therapy assistant license, I knew when I was in college that I wanted to do bodybuilding. I was seeing across Instagram, which I am old enough to have been in college when Instagram first started in 2012. And I remember seeing bodybuilding just being so huge, and it was growing, and I saw more fit girls in it, and I was a fit girl, so that really drew me into it. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm this like big athlete, I love muscles. I even have if you guys were around long enough to have word art, my dad has it hanging up in his cabinet for some reason still, a word art creation that I made that said like, I love having muscles. Like I was maybe in middle school when I created this word art document that my dad still has of like things to know about me. And like one of those is that I wrote, I love to build up more muscle than fat. I don't know. So that was, anyways, me. And so when I was in college and I started seeing bodybuilding becoming popular, and I saw these really fit girls doing it, I was like, oh, like, I can do that. Like, I recognize I'm an athlete, and I already feel like I have some of the looks of that. I love muscle too, so this looks really cool for me. I loved their, like, dedication to workouts, as I was pretty much training like that as a college athlete anyways. But I knew that it didn't make sense to get involved in that when I was a college athlete still, and I really respected and honored my craft in track and field that I didn't really want anything to get in the way of that. I was so focused on that, I didn't want to add something else in to take away from the training that I was already doing for that sport to become the best, right? So I remember telling myself that I would do bodybuilding once I was done with track. And so here I was, my collegiate career was over, and I was living back home with my parents. I was driving to my community college to get my associates and do the coursework. And yeah, I needed something to like pour into. I had always been involved in sports, even with academics. So it felt, whoa, what is this life without sports? So I was still working out and I still really enjoyed that. I was doing mud races and things like that. But it was like, okay, now it's time I can get back in the gym and start having something to train for. I was bartending at the time, and I met somebody at a bar whose wife was a previous physique competitor, and she was local to the area, and she was going to help me with my bodybuilding career. Just, all right, here, I'm going to put you under my wing, and I'm going to introduce you to this sport, and you can afford it. So it was, okay, cool. Like, here's this person. She was really cool and sweet. And so that was like my step into bodybuilding. I think I only had maybe a 2-month prep at that point, and I was following a meal plan that she had, and I was doing the workouts that she suggested, and I got really, really, really tiny. I was so tiny. I don't remember what I weighed at that point, probably like 110, 105, I don't know. I was just so teeny tiny. But I did my first competition and I did really well. I won, and it was like from that moment, it was like, I'm hooked. So I got deep into bodybuilding and I graduated. I got my license to practice and physical therapy assistant. And then I was pursuing that. I was doing home health. for a period of time working with patients inside the home. And I eventually was doing physical therapy in an outpatient setting at a chiropractic office. So I was really trying to find where I fit in with my physical therapy, like what aligned with me. I remember driving home one evening after seeing patients in home health, and I was like, this is just so, like, I can't see me doing this the rest of my life. I felt like, sad to say, like, I'm gonna be brutally honest, and maybe some of you feel that way in your jobs right now, but it was almost like I couldn't wait to be done with work to do life, like things that give me life and I love and enjoy and me time. I just couldn't wait to get to my life. And so that's when I really knew something was missing and that this wasn't it for me, as much as I tried to make it a thing, as much as it felt like it resonated. And another brutal honesty is that I didn't even really know about physical therapy. I knew my oldest sister, she was a doctor in physical therapy, and she had mentioned to me at one time when I was trying to figure out what I would do with this health science degree, she was like, I am a doctor of physical therapy and I really struggled in school. And she was on academic probation at one time. And so it was hinted at me of, hey, I'm really freaking smart and I really struggled in this program. And here I am. So what do you think that's like meaning when somebody says, hey, like, I went through it and, I barely made it. So I don't know if this is for you. What do you think that's meaning, right? So it was, oh, okay, I'll listen to my older sister and my mom who backed that up and was like, yeah, it's a good idea to go in PTA. And so I wasn't really following my intuition anyways. I just loved learning about the body. And so it seemed, okay, I guess I'll do that. Like I would love to work with athletes. I was one myself. I can resonate. So it just seemed, okay, I guess I'll do that. So I spent a couple years in something of, I guess, my sister said, it should be, yada, yada, yada. So it makes sense why it just never felt right, because I wasn't truly doing something that my intuition led me to. It was mostly like recommended to me, and I was like, okay, I guess, sure. So all that to say is, meanwhile, I was a physical therapist assistant. I also was capped. Like, I remember bringing in my income, and with the rent that I had and the student loans that I had from then now 6 years of school, I remember bringing home money, and it was like $3,000 a month. And I was like, this leaves very little for like me to buy groceries. Like after groceries, this like leaves little for me to just like adventure with and to give life to. And so I ended up getting my certified personal trainer on a weekend course at the gym that I went to, and it was a super easy exam for me. It was like, I had a bachelor's in health science and I already had a physical therapy license. So this CPT certification was on a weekend and crushed it. And so I eventually wanted to start bringing in personal training. So I was doing physical therapy work and I was also doing personal training, and I was able to blend the two, working with athletes who maybe weren't needing rehabilitation. So I was like, this feels awesome. I love this. And this could be an extra source of income for me because I felt very capped out. And so everything just kept going on my course and my life. And I was showing up for the things, working in the chiropractic office as a physical therapist assistant. And eventually I got let go of that job because they ended up like dropping physical therapy from the clinic. So it makes sense. Why would we still have a PTA here when we don't offer physical therapy here anymore? So at that point, then I went back to home health, and I was doing home health, working through 3 different companies as a PRN, physical therapist assistant. So I was creating my own hours. I was my own boss in a way. I could pick up as many cases as I want, and I also could choose not to take as many cases as I want. So I was doing personal training alongside of all of that, and also bodybuilding still. I was still prepping and competing and all the sorts. So things were very busy, right? Things were very busy. And then 2020 happened. Patients stopped wanting to be seen, and I was already building up a pretty good clientele with my personal training. I was like, this is the perfect time for me to take that risk. This is the perfect time for me to take that risk and step into what I actually want to create, like what's actually giving me life. And 2020 is also the last time that I stepped off the stage. I did bodybuilding as a bikini bodybuilder for 5 years straight. Like, you're supposed to take adequate time off in between shows. I hardly did. I hated the off season because I would gain the weight, and bodybuilding is something that I look back on now and I'm like, that was a great experience. I learned so much, but I would never do it again. And if I could actually go back, I would probably never even hired a bodybuilding coach to begin with. Really what I was looking for is something, I was looking for a coach. I was looking for somebody to push me a little bit, and I didn't really need to be on a stage and be in a bikini and do the massive cuts and restriction of foods and the over-exercising. I feel like bodybuilding took me from like just past the point of like where my body was going to just comfortably be at. And it took me way past that. I went to the opposite end of the spectrum. Whereas looking back now, I can see that I would have been just like as good, physique looking and athletic if I never did the severe food restriction. Instead, if I just had somebody like guide me to eating enough for my body and enough for the exercise, I'm already a very lean person anyways, and I don't have to restrict food in order to be lean. Sure, it's genetics. I don't have to push myself past the point of no return in order to get that. And I think bodybuilding was something that just took me way too far, that you have to have an opposite reaction, right? Whatever can happen will happen. And also the sense of I just went too far, that there was a breaking point. I had a breaking point. So that is what happened in 2020. I stepped off the stage for the last time at the Arnold, and I remember feeling not happy. I was just at the Arnold stage. My boyfriend was there. I got off the stage and I was like, I'm not happy. And right after getting off the stage, I went right into that binge cycle where I'd have a cheat meal and I'm allowed to increase my calories. And it just went to the point of I couldn't stop it. The issues that I had with food, the issues that bodybuilding and taking your body to that place past a breaking point, I tried so much to say that there's a healthy way to do this. There isn't. And so what ended up happening was my body started screaming. She started saying, I will not do this for you and with you another time. I had never had issues. Like, I remember in bodybuilding, people be like, oh, like, I have gut issues from it and my hormones are off from it. I remember being like, oh, like, those are great excuses they have. Wow. And then it happened to me. After 5 years. And I could just slap myself for what I used to think back then, right? Like, I could slap myself for what I used to think back then and how I used to think people were making excuses. Like, no. Shit caught up to me. My body was screaming so loud. And I remember the coach that I was working with when we finished that last show, we were doing my own labs. Now that we're done and we're reversing and going into an off season, let's see what things are looking like. So the blood labs I would get back, we would see that there was systemic inflammation. We would see that I had poor thyroid, aka meaning I had low active thyroid, and I also had high TSH. So I kind of had a couple of different points of seeing that my thyroid was sluggish. I had zilch of hormones, like no progesterone, had hardly any estrogen showing up. I had cortisol that was high. And so we just had a lot of different areas looking at the body through blood work that, okay, things are off. And it was almost seen as we expect to see this off. So I pushed it away for a little while because for a point of time, my weight wasn't really huge in my face. It was just like, I knew I was going to gain some and, obviously gain some weight back from being 110 pounds. It was at the point where the weight just accrued without stopping. And 7-8 months later, I was up from 110 pounds walking off the stage to 150 pounds, which I'd never seen in my life. So that was when things started crashing down. Oh shit, you should probably pay attention to this stuff. We can't keep just putting this off any longer. So I had the blood work done to show shit was going off. And then my coach just didn't understand the mental load that I was experiencing through this like health crisis. And maybe he did, but that wasn't maybe his role or his purpose in our coaching capacity was to help me navigate what I was feeling and things like that, which that's fine. And I remember him recommending me to see a psychologist. He's like, I think you need to see somebody, because every check-in I would be like, I'm gaining weight and I'm like so unhappy and like I can't understand why I'm doing all the things right. which at the time I finally started to actually nourish myself and eat enough, but it's almost, again, your body has this, like, you swung one way too far in the pendulum, you're gonna swing back even fucking harder. Yeah, the weight gain was going to happen, and at that point I was around 20 pounds up from my normal ebb and flow of body weight. So around 125 to 130, 132 is where I can, like, fluctuate and still be really good vitality, good health. And so then I was sitting at 150, which I've never been in my life, and I was still working out a good bunch. I was weightlifting, I wasn't prepping for a show or anything. I was just trying to, like, get my body back to, like, its homeostasis, right? After all those years and all the stressors and things like that. So it was like finally letting it get back to its space again. And when I experienced this health crisis in 2020, I remember being like, yeah, okay, I'm not ever going to compete again. I don't ever want to do this again. The turmoil, the identity crisis, the health issues that I experienced from this, the way that it fucked up my brain. But I remember being at volleyball. I play sand volleyball every single week competitively. And I remember being there at volleyball and thinking, is anybody else thinking about what meal, like what food they're gonna eat right now? Because I'm really hungry, and it's almost like your brain just can't stop thinking about food. And it makes sense because after depleting yourself so long, it's just a survival response. It's a survival response from your body of, we need to keep getting food in until we've reached a baseline and where we have enough storage and we're processing things enough better that, yeah, then you can get to that homeostasis point. But it was just like this mind warp. And so at some point in my journey, stop tracking macros. I wasn't doing it anymore. That was adding more stress. That was adding more, like, trying to be perfect and analyze more and more stuff. At one point in my journey in 2020, 2021, I got so frustrated and I was so overwhelmed with all the shit, trying to, like, fine tune everything and make sure everything's, like, good to see why I'm not losing weight or why things aren't really getting that much better. I said fuck it to all that stuff. I stopped tracking. I stopped being meticulous about, okay, make sure I'm lifting 4 days a week and progressive overload. There was a point where I just, like, you know what? I want to listen to my body, and I want to get rid of the noise. And I think that's a very important place to be at sometimes, where you start to become your own best self-healer, right? You recognize that, like, sometimes that information can be helpful, but there's times where information and data is just not helpful, and that was at the place where I was at. Through this journey, what I was experiencing, I told you guys in the blood work, I kept getting updated blood work, and again, still things were off. My coach recommended me to see a psychologist, which, sure. So I saw a psychologist, and she didn't really understand how bodybuilding is that can create food issues. And so then she sent me to a sports dietitian. So instead of needing a counselor and a therapist, she was like, I think you just need to, like, actually work with a sports dietitian to come back from this and really help you with your nutrition. And so I had an appointment with a sports dietitian, and the sports dietitian was like, hey, honestly, everything you're doing is fine. Everything's, like, great. I actually don't think you need anything. I think you're doing great. What you're doing is great. Sure. Because I was telling her that I was, like, how I was focusing on nutrition and what I was shifting away from with tracking. And I remember that call, just a nice sense of relief of, like, okay, so I'm not fucked up there. It's not wrong here. So it was like getting more of, okay, I'm on the right path here. I'm doing good. And so that ended, and then I was still experiencing issues, and so she recommended me to get my health looked at by a sports physician. She was associated with OSU, and so then she sent me to a sports physician at OSU. So that's now the third person that I've been in contact with to dive deeper into, okay, so what's going on here? Like, how can I get through this? How can I help my body? I know my body's struggling. What do I do? And so now I'm at the third person in my journey. The third person was a sports physician. And he was like, you know what? Yeah, it makes sense why your body would kind of be in this position, but you look good. So I'm not really sure. I don't know. I can't really see what's too wrong with you, but let's go ahead and get your thyroid scan, because I was telling him how I thought at the time it was like all of a thyroid issue. And I also still wasn't having a period at that point in time. So I hadn't had a period in a year. And so he was like, yeah, there's some things that seem off, but I don't know, not sure, but let's go ahead and get your thyroid scan, because that could be the one thing whatever. So then I'm referred to go and get a thyroid scan, and I got the information back that there was some thyroid nodules there, but nobody really knew. He didn't really know what to do with that information either. So the sports physician then referred me to an endocrinologist. Okay, so now I'm at the fourth person on this journey. So I get sent to the endocrinologist, and I will never forget this appointment, because this was the catalyst that changed everything for me in a good way. I got to this appointment. I'm frustrated. I'm now at the fourth person, and this is now obviously probably 6 months into my journey or more of understanding what's going on and how do I help my body? How do I work through this? How do I get back to my baseline? Which that was like the thought process at the time. I was super uncomfortable. I was experiencing digestive issues. I was pretty much how you would say peeing out my ass. I had sluggish thyroid. I knew that I had blood work to complement that, but I also knew my energy was very depleted. I had just been, I was a caffeine addict. Multiple cups a day, venti cold brews. I was having French presses, 2 of those in the morning. The caffeine was outrageous and it wasn't like hitting me. That was a problem. It was something that you're used to in bodybuilding is just like supplementing with caffeine, right? And I also knew that I had hormone issues from blood work, but I also knew that still hadn't had a period yet after a year. And my last competition was in January of 2020. Getting to fall of 2020, it was like, okay, there's things that are still off here. I had cellulite on my stomach, which I'd never had before. Obviously gained the 20 pounds extra, which really was around 40 pounds in 8 months. Energy was terrible. Yeah. Mood, all over the place. And I go to this appointment, and so I'm already coming in very frustrated. And I'm like, you better give me answers. You better pull, and if you're going to pull blood work, you better pull them all. If you're going to look at the thyroid, pull the whole thyroid. You know what I'm saying? So I get there, and I'm with the endocrinologist, and is it like a resident or something like that? So there was 2 of them together. And I remember sitting there and just had to come in and say my whole story again of what my past had been like as far as competing and working out twice a day and bodybuilding. And here I am now, and I'm experiencing all these things. And I've also had full panels of blood work done myself to show that these things were off. So what can you guys do with the information that I have of my symptoms, my experiences, my personal journey, and also the blood work that I have? Like, I'll show you it. I'll send it to you. Here's everything that I've had from a full panel. And I came into that appointment, and I remember feeling like I'm explaining to you what I'm feeling and experiencing, and that this is not my normal, and you're telling me that I'm fine. That's how it was communicated to me. It was almost like I was silly for thinking that something was wrong and having this blood work that shows this or that, because the only blood work that matters for your thyroid is TSH, and nothing else matters, and that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard. It was so frustrating. I was like, how do you not understand that like one value isn't the entire glimpse at the thyroid? How do you explain all my symptoms then? And I just remember hearing back from the doctor of saying, if you were worried about your weight gain, maybe you should work out more or eat less. And it was when I heard that, I said, please pull these and these labs, and fuck it, I'm done. I literally had to tell them to pull these labs, and it was hard enough to get them to pull the right labs for a full, complete thyroid, which I will admit, me honing in and focusing on thyroid wasn't the mere issue. That was just something that's all I knew at the time that was like really off for me, and a lot of the symptoms made sense. So I just felt that let's get the thyroid right. Let's attack the thyroid. So I still had a skewed perspective of it at the time, but I knew there was something else to this. And so getting that word back that, hey, well, if you're really worried about your weight and that's like your biggest thing, because all of your health looks good here, everything looks fine, looks normal, then if your weight is your issue and you're not comfortable with it, maybe you should eat less and work out more. And I remember being like, that's exactly what I've been doing the last 5 years, honestly, if not more, from college athletics, and doing 2 or 3 a days. And we know that college athletes aren't eating enough. We know that. The girls aren't eating enough. And so how can you tell me that? It was almost like you literally aren't listening to me, and you're not taking me into consideration, and you're just assuming and making assumptions, and I'm fucking pissed off. And so that rage, that frustration, I am so thankful for it, because I walked out of there, got into my car, cried my eyes out to my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, cried my eyes out, and I'm like, I'm so fucking frustrated. I can't believe, like, why am I being passed around? And I'm here at the 4th person, and they're not even hearing me out. Like, I am struggling. I'm struggling, and you're just telling me to actually eat less and work out more, which is what I've been doing the last many fucking years? How's that the answer that you have? And so I had already been dipping my toes into functional medicine. I'm trying to learn this stuff myself a little bit from what I can. And At that point, I got off the phone with my boyfriend and I submitted a 3,000 and some odd change investment into a functional nutrition program to learn it myself, to learn how to be my own healer. Because all of this that I was doing, all of the right things by seeing conventional medicine and taking the right steps and taking the initiative and advocating for myself, I wasn't being heard. So I hear myself loud and clear. You know what? I'm going to learn from people who are going to teach me how to help heal myself. And that's where it all began for me. So I did a functional nutrition mentorship and certification course where I then learned about hormones beyond just the scope of the thyroid, beyond just the scope of cortisol and the adrenals, and beyond the sex hormones and the binding globulins. Like, I learned it all, and I learned about gut health. I learned about the connection of gut health to your hormones and to your brain and your mind and your headspace and your mind field. And it was just like, holy crap, this is amazing. And I started to get ideas. I started to know how to, number one, listen to my body, and then kind of be like, oh, and this is what my body may be asking for. And it was all very natural. So I started diving into that, but I also knew I wanted just to maybe look into functional medicine doctors. Again, I want to outsource. I want to hire help of like people who can help me learn this myself and who are looking at things in a different perspective as I was looking outside of the conventional realm. And so I then went into functional medicine. And I think it was another eye-opening experience. And I went there and again had to explain my whole history, everything I've been doing, all the labs that I had done, everything I was experiencing. And I remember her being like, okay, so we can do blood work again. We can address your hormones or we can address your gut health, because it seemed like the menstrual cycle and the hormone related issues, thyroid, sex hormones, everything, and also my gut issues were big players. And so if I wanted to do gut health, I needed to get a GI map first. But if I wanted to do hormones, I needed to get a Dutch test. I also don't think you need merely just a GI map in order to know what's going on with your gut health. I actually think there could be a lot of steps going on prior to needing either of those that can be addressing the foundations and can take you a lot farther than just needing to outsource more testing to get more information, which if you listen to the body enough, it's already giving you enough information. So that is my experience in functional medicine, kind of like, hey, well, if we do either of these, this is how it's going to look. We're getting this test or we're going to get this test. The Dutch test is also a little bit more affordable than the GI map, so let's do that one. So I got that information back and just got more insight into what was going on, which again, if my body and symptoms were listened to, we would already know these were things. I had poor clearance of estrogen. I had poor detox. I had like postmenopausal level of progesterone. Again, made sense. Now, at this point, I did start getting my period back, but that came with a lot of symptoms, like extreme breast tenderness, very heavy, and was inconsistent lengths. And I honestly didn't even know if I was ovulating at the time. I didn't know that much about naturally tracking my cycles, but I also wasn't on birth control, so I was just basically logging periods, and that was it. The bleeding phase, that was it, which is not fertility awareness methods. So thank goodness my other sources of protection were working. Anyways, I went that route and things got better, but I remember progesterone, bioidentical progesterone being recommended to me and a bunch of supplements too. It was all supplements, testing, and we tried bioidentical progesterone, which again, I'm like still new to this, not really knowing, but just kind of being like, all right, I'm going to go along with you for what you think is best. And I had an immediate reaction to the bioidentical progesterone. I got a bunch of bumps on my arm. So I had basically an inflammation response that this isn't right for you. So she recommended we pull off of that. But still, weight wasn't budging in the area that I wanted. And the energy was still, the gut issues were definitely still the gut issues were so bad. When I mean about bloatedness, when I mean about the urgencies, the liquidness of it, yeah, all still really awful. And it was hard to know, there was really gassy moments too, and it was hard to know what was gonna throw off my gut with the meals that I was eating. And so that was something that I was still majorly experiencing and dealing with. Now the next year in 2021, after I worked with functional medicine, I was, I feel that helped some, but it still wasn't it, which I think everything in my journey has served a purpose, but there was more that I was looking for. And nobody was really talking to me about my exercise at that point in time either. I was still trying to do multiple workouts a day. I was still trying to do high intensity exercise. Again, it was try this and then we'll see in a month of how things are going. And here's this no dairy, no gluten protocol, and here's that. So it was just missing the person still. However, my journey goes on. Then I work with a functional nutrition dietitian later at the end of 2021, where then my gut health was finally addressed. But again, it still relied on me doing a GI map, and I had to do blood work. And it was like we had a call once a month to check in, and here, follow this protocol. Again, be gluten-free, dairy-free, and here are the supplements. So it was the same thing again, just presented in a different way. And I don't want to talk ill on that because that really did change my gut health. But meanwhile, working through my gut health, I was starting to work in nervous system stuff. I was starting to learn more about regulating nervous system and emotional processing and honestly, spirituality. I was starting to blend in all these things where I felt really good with my nutrition. I felt like that wasn't something that I needed to hyper focus on or anything. So I was doing a lot of now starting to build up all the parts of the person together. And after that gut protocol, it really sent me through, okay, now my gut is like feeling really good, bowel movements really good. And it was, had my gut health been addressed first, everything would have changed, because it seemed like after that, it's like, wow, great. Like now I have some clarity. I was starting to see the weight drop now 2 years after my health crisis. And so it was a very slow weight loss, and my periods were getting better and better, more consistent. It was honestly until 2023 where I felt like everything just like fell into place. Because after the gut protocol, again, I started diving into my spirituality. I feel like I had a spiritual awakening at 2022. And just from there on, I just started bringing in more and more concepts. I then in 2023 got my holistic health certification. And so I just started off at this one place in my journey through my health crisis. And I just took off. I took off on learning from people. I learned from experiences. So again, I don't want to really trash on my journey, because I think I chose the best at the time that I knew what to go for and to learn from the people. And all those experiences meant something to me that I either learned from, or I just saw what worked and what didn't work and what I would like to work with people for. Okay, that didn't work. I don't really like how that was handled. I didn't like how this was. Let me make my coaching experience, everything that I've experienced, and wrap it up into exactly how I would want to give this to the world. Who needs what I felt was lacking in my experiences? And now through what I know through my education and my certifications, now I get to put this all together. And I just wrapped it up into holistic health coaching, and I was bringing in functional medicine practices into there. I was bringing in nervous system work into it. I was bringing in emotional processing into it. I was bringing in holistic and natural remedies and ancient practices into it, into where now here I am in 2025. I have all of these pieces together of all my different experiences and journeys and mentors and certifications and education, and putting it all into this coaching experience where now I'm bringing in somatic work and somatic practices into this work, and now trauma informed and very root caused approached. And so it's just like it gets better and better. And that's not to say things that I did before didn't work. It just, you keep, as a business, especially when your business is your personal brand and your skill and your service to the world, if you aren't evolving and refining your work to be better and better, what are you actually doing? Like, you're not actually doing the good work. If you're not seeing areas of, you know what, I still feel like this was missing in my work and my coaching practice. Here, now I'm going to learn this. Now I'm going to study this. And now I'm going to integrate it and bring it into my work. And so minerals and mineral balancing and trauma informed and nervous system work and somatics are just such a huge, now big component of my work, where I feel like I'm really at a point where the science is meeting spirituality, and where the lab work is complemented with intuition, where it's not just relying on protocols and supplements and testing. We have energy here. We have the metaphysical. We have your total self involved in this. And we're not relying on as much testing when we can bring in co-creative healing together. So I really bring in a lot of self-reflective coaching and transformational coaching, which is really asking you very good questions in order for you to find your own solutions and come to your answers for what is best for you on your journey, and bringing people back into their intuition, bringing people back into their bodies so they can make informed decisions, so that they can be the leader of their health journey, not relying on somebody else to be the expert and to be the authoritarian of tell me what to do and I'll do it. Like, we're done with that. That really doesn't work. And that's why even the conventional medicine models are not working. That's not working in a lot of cases. And even in the functional medicine route, it's like, that's still not working. Just testing, labs, and supplements is just a more natural realm of conventional medicine, as they're not using as many pills, but they're still doing the testing, they're still doing all the lab work, and now it's just, instead of like medications, which some of them can actually get medications still too, but it's a lot of supplements. And the women that come into the space that work with me are understanding that I don't want to just be getting my health back into center from supplements. And so my work with a lot of women is that I'm seeing that they're taking a lot of supplements. And so I'm like, hey, there can be good supplements that are good for you, but why isn't there any time off listed for these supplements? Are these supplements you're going to be taking for months on end? If so, why is there no change in this? Why is there no end date for the supplements that you're on? And is this person aware of your nervous system state? Is this person aware of the energetic state within your body? If you're super, super depleted, having more supplements, even if well-intended, can be actually harmful. Even in the terms of nervous system states, if somebody is very burned out, if somebody is also equally very high inflammation, very reactive, body's responding very ill to a lot of things, hey, guess what? Supplements might actually be more harmful than good, even if they're third-party tested and they're very natural and they're organic and they're well-intended. That doesn't mean that those still sit right with the energy and with the state of the person's body. And also, I feel like trauma-informed coaching is missing in a lot of practitioners because, number one, they don't understand their clients' nervous system states, and they also don't understand that they don't need more people, they don't need more testing to tell them what's wrong with their body. And a lot of people that are in these really burned out states are coming to you after struggling with their health for so long, and your recommendation is more testing, which to them feels like it's a report card. And these are type A people. And so when they get a report card back from a test that shows that this and this is off or out of range, they feel that as a personal attack. And so the over testing and the over supplementation is a huge problem that I have a lot of beef with, which I understand there's nuance, that testing can be helpful. Testing for me was super helpful, but testing at a certain point became too much. Having too much data for me became too much. Having some data was helpful to get me steps in motion and get me on a path, but there's also a point in time where the testing wasn't helpful, the data wasn't helpful, and too many supplements started to be very overwhelming for me, even if they were well intended. So at a certain point, I said, I'm done with supplements. I'm done with trying to cherry pick everything. I'm done with just trying to get more and more testing done. That's when I really started to take all this into my own hands. Yeah, I had that experience myself, and I'm so thankful to be able to take experiences, whether good or bad, and to be able to bring it into what package or what service or what way do I want to spread this experience that I had into the work that I do and with the women that I work with. So here we are now. I'm coming up on 6 years into my coaching practice. And honestly, I think it is just like to be able to really see and work with the whole person. And again, just going to go back to it just gets better and better and better. And I get better and better and better. And I'm also equally so grateful for that this is my work. This is what I give to the world. This is the energy that I give out to the world. And I want to share a tiny example of, or not an example, I just want to share a tiny story of something that just happened to me recently. I was at a hypnotherapy session, and the hypnotherapist told me, get really specific in asking God or the universe if this is the path for you, because I've been feeling some frustrations and some struggles coming up. And she's asked God to give you a sign, a specific sign. A couple nights ago, I sat down and got my little phone out and wrote in my notepad. I like to journal of like what went on in the session, like what are my thoughts, what am I thinking about things, how am I feeling about things. And I wrote in there too, specifically, I asked God, I was like, God, if this is a path for me, show me me in a sign of a coin. And I remember visualizing as I said that of me walking out my front porch and seeing a penny. And I'm like, oh, so cool. So anyways, that was the intention that I said. And the next day I woke up, forgot all about that. I asked God to show me a sign in the form of a coin. And I'm getting ready in the guest bathroom. I'm putting on my makeup and I look down and there's a quarter there. And I'm like, oh, I start crying. I start crying as I'm like putting on my eyeliner. I'm like, oh my God, like God, I see you. I hear you. Like, thank you. Thank you so much. And that was so touching for me. And so I come back to work and I'm sitting here in my office and I'm doing some work and I go back to use the bathroom and I sit down and I see on the guest bathroom sink again, there's a penny. And I'm like, what the heck? I mean, I saw the quarter earlier, but like, how did I not see the penny? So these are now 2 times that I've seen a coin and this morning or this day. And so I'm calling my husband and I'm like, hey, I just got to tell you about this. Like, this is crazy and so beautiful. And I told him the story and he was like, oh my gosh, you're going to make me cry. And I was like, well, like, I know why I was crying. This is so like touching for me, but like, why are you crying? And he explained it that months ago, he put some of those coins out there with the intention in the world that those coins placed there, I was going to see, and it was going to mean something for me to see those coins. Again, he had no idea that I would even dive into hypnotherapy, no idea that I would lay down and get really specific at some point in the future that I was going to see a coin, and this coin meant that God was telling me I was on my path. And so we both sat there, we're like, oh my God, this is so crazy and so freaking beautiful. And it felt like I was working in a realm with God and he was also working in a realm with God about me. And it was like, this all came together. And so I share that story because ask and you shall receive. You know, you're on the path. Like, I knew I was on the path, but just really in the struggle of the path and being like, okay, God, I'm feeling really hard right now. And if this is a path for me, please show me. And then I will just know that, okay, I need to just change how I'm showing up in the world or how I'm showing up in the work. And so that was God's message. So I just wanted to share that, and I hope that you give that a try. I hope this episode just landed for you, and mostly sharing my story, but of how just to continue to listen to your body, and that honestly, the collapse of my health or the health issues that I experienced was a transformation for me. It was initiation into something greater, and I don't think I would be in the place that I'm at right now had I not gone through that and had that journey or experience myself. Like, this has truly set me on a path of something I'm so like in awe about every single day, of just how incredible this work is and this work that I get to share and give to the world. And so I hope you find that for you. But the next episode, I'm going to share a bit more about some signs that I knew my body was healing and where I've been at the last, like, I would say 2 years or so of my health journey, because I truly feel there's never an end destination, because you never stop trying for your health. You never stop supporting your health. You never stop caring about it. We are on a constant journey, and I'm going to share with you the next episodes of where all that work has taken me into the last couple of years of my own health journey, because I have been the girl that has been doing everything right, and my health still gives me signs at times. And I don't think that's wrong, and I don't want you to think it's wrong either. If your body never spoke to you, you would never know how to pivot. You would never know how to listen and make the adjustments or make the change that your body is asking for. You would never be able to heed the signs and listen and let that transform you and transmute you, alchemize you into something completely different that you never knew. It's the most beautiful thing. It helps us know how to listen and what our body is asking for, that we don't always need to outsource for testing and getting blood work done, a GI map and HTMA, or even a total toxin panel, whatever it is. Like, you don't need that all the time in order to listen to your body. So if you're loving these episodes, there is more to come. I would deeply appreciate it if you can comment what you're feeling about these, comment your experiences. I will read them all and respond to them all, or share this or subscribe. It truly helps so much. And thank you. I'll see you guys in the next episode.